Good evening and welcome to the Dollar Dogs and Beer podcast. This is episode number 144. Tonight we are previewing the AL and NL Central. Jason is not going to be on tonight. He's got some personal stuff going. So me and Joe for the regulars and what are basically the two regulars every time we do any kind of Central preview. Zach and Alex are back. Gentlemen, welcome to the show tonight. How's it going?
Great. Thanks for having me again. Happy to be back.
Favorite time of year.
It's always good to have extra perspective because me and Joe get a little salty when it comes to certain teams in the Central, St. Louis and Milwaukee in particular. So, Zach, it's good for you to level us back down and give more reasonable expectations for how things typically go. Joe, what are you drinking tonight, bud?
Back on the SoCo kick, so I've got SoCo and Mountain Dew Zero because I have zero expectations for what the Cubs are going to do this year.
Always the great answer. Alex, what do you got tonight?
I've got a Half Acre Drip Castle. Never had this one from Half Acre before, but had to go with the Chicago place.
Absolutely. Zach, what do you got tonight?
I've got the Victory Brotherly Love Hazy IPA. It's a little leftover Super Bowl beer. My wife's a big Eagles fan, so we got it for that, and this is the last one. So
I'm so sorry, dude. That was a long Super Bowl to watch if you had no rooting interests at all. For me tonight, guys, from New Trail, the good old blueberry sour. I actually I've had a lot of their sours. I haven't had the blueberry yet. This is solid. Really good. Another one Jason's probably going to try and steal a can from me before too much longer if he doesn't find it himself first. All right, let's roll it in. Tonight, ESPN and MLB finally are breaking it off after a very, very, very long time of MLB being on the network. This is going to be the last season you're going to see any coverage from ESPN of MLB games. The deadline was March 1st for the opt-out of the final 3 years, which is, I believe that the opt-out was done on MLB's side. ESPN said we're grateful for a long-standing relationship with Major League Baseball. I'm proud of how ESPN's coverage super serves the fans. Making this decision, we apply the same discipline and fiscal responsibility that has built ESPN's industry-leading live sports event portfolio as we continue to grow our audience across linear, digital, and social platforms. As we have been throughout the process, we do remain open to exploring new ways to serve MLB fans across our platforms beyond 2025. Oh boy, there is so much to unpack just from that quote alone. But some background, they've been carrying MLB games since 1990. They did cut back coverage in the current contract to 30 regular season games, most of which fall on the Sunday Night Baseball package, which usually tends to be a curse to the regulars on this show. Just going to leave it at that. I hate seeing the Braves on Sunday Night Baseball because they could be playing Double-A Birmingham or something like that and probably lose 8-2. The prior 8-year deal featured up to 90 regular season games, and that deal went from 14 to 21. They also stopped airing the Daily Baseball Tonight highlights news show back in 2017. I do miss Baseball Tonight. That was really solid for so many years. They would be open to pursuing a deal with reduced rights fee after watching MLB come to deals with Apple. They're paying $85 million a season for their Friday night package, and Roku has a Sunday afternoon games package at $10 million a season. I actually forgot Roku had picked that up, so good reminder for me. MLB said, unfortunately, in recent years, we've seen ESPN scale back their baseball coverage and investment in a way that's not consistent with the sport's appeal or performance on their platform, given that MLB provides strong viewership, valuable demographics, and exclusive right to cover unique events like the Home Run Derby. ESPN's demand of reduced rights fee is simply unacceptable. As a result, we have mutually agreed to terminate the agreement. So other money MLB does bring in, they get about $729 million a year from Fox, and a lot of that's from their postseason coverage, although they get some prime time stuff on Saturday afternoons and Saturday evenings throughout the summer when nothing else is frankly on TV, and $470 million a year from Turner Sports. That deal expires after 2028. So it's not like MLB is hurting, cutting ESPN loose. But let's be real. The quality of broadcasting from ESPN has been going downhill for a number of years. This isn't just this just happened over the last couple of years. Now, this has been ongoing for a while. The quality of announcing and color commentary on Sunday Night Baseball has gotten so bad. It's unwatchable at this point. Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, it's to me that when my team's on there, yeah, I'll watch it, but at the same time, it's more they try to do the long form interviews while the guys are playing in the field, and it's just like this isn't exactly smart for the player. It's obviously not smart for the game, and it feels like ESPN is the one place that failed to adjust for the pitch clock when it came to how much time you actually have to do those kind of interviews. Now that the inning goes a lot quicker,
Mm-hmm.
The quality of the commentary too has been, like you said, a little suspect. And obviously they've made some decisions a number of years ago to kind of go, you know what, we don't really care about this enough to get into it. And I think MLB made the right call here. And there's going to be plenty of interest from other streaming platforms. There'll be games on Peacock. There'll be games on Max now that with the Turner contract, obviously some of that stuff I think will show up on Max more often probably if it doesn't already. So I mean, MLB's not hurting for that. I think they need to develop they have MLB Network obviously, but it feels like there's a niche there for a network that people regularly have access to kind of reinvent Baseball Tonight and make it more accessible and do more of the highlights of fielding plays, the web gems, all that stuff. I feel like that's one thing as a longtime baseball fan that's really been missing is the general excitement around what the players can do. So
yeah, like I miss Chris Berman going back during the home run derby, like that. And I know Berman's retired. He's not going to come back out, but like they didn't find anybody that comes close to his level of excitement for the home run derby. Like even Stephen A. Smith screaming and ranting about something would have been more entertaining than what they've had on the home run derby even the last couple of years. I miss the web gems the most. If you want to show me big home runs from the day, great. Honestly, with home runs, I'm take it or leave it. I like seeing the big ones. I don't need to see 5 minutes of home runs from the day. I want to see the damn web gems come back because some of the plays those guys make are absolutely mind-blowing to watch. Alex, what do you think? You and I spent a ton of time watching Baseball Tonight growing up and, PTI Around the Horn, all sorts of shows like that, which are all going bye-bye per ESPN's fiduciary responsibilities.
I think that ESPN thought that they could pull a fast one over MLB, given where MLB's been at the past couple of years with Bally Sports for the regional side of things. I thought they could squeeze some money out of them, and MLB said no. And good for MLB for doing that. I'm waiting for Amazon to step in. I think Amazon honestly did a good job with Thursday Night Football. I think they could do a decent job with baseball. But MLB needs personalities, like you were saying, to build that excitement. Look at NBA on TNT. Like, you need your Charles Barkley and your Shaquille O'Neal. You need those people who can make it fun, bring in some cool stories from their past, be funny together, rib on each other. You need something like that in modern day sports to really make it a successful broadcast. And MLB just doesn't have that. And I don't know why. I don't know if baseball players, former baseball players, just it's a grueling season. They're like, I'm done with baseball when I retire. But they need to find those past players to step up to really help build that excitement and bridge the generational gap.
Yeah, definitely. Zach, what do you think?
I'm with you guys about I think the issue is the way that baseball is being presented. and it's like nationally, it's so hard to make people care about a standalone regular season baseball game. I've got 162 games to worry about as a Cardinals fan, and I'm generally not going to be flipping on Sunday Night Baseball to watch the Astros and the Mariners, for example. And I love baseball, but I just think the standalone games don't represent baseball for what it is. It's a game that's about series. It's about attrition. There's so much variance in the sport that one game really does not give you an indication of how good each team is. Let's say you're watching a Sunday Night Baseball with the Dodgers, and that happens to be the game that Shohei Ohtani goes 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. And then you look up at the end of the year and he wins the MVP. Well, because that game didn't matter. And there's just, I can't take anything away from a standalone game. So therefore I generally don't watch them. And it really is more interesting to see the web gems and the highlights and a broader scope. I think MLB Network does a good job and did a better job in the past of that. Their programming was really engaging. You got to go around the league, see all of it. And just a game here and there is just, it's not interesting. And it really doesn't matter to most people.
Yeah, and as MLB has shown, they generally knock the one-off games or like the short series special games out of the park. We've talked about it on the show ad nauseum, things like the Field of Dreams game, the Little League Classic every year. When Philly and New York went to London last year, the great production value with the TV, and what was the Negro League game last year that they did at the old park? Anytime they do one of these one-off kind of things, MLB does such a good job with producing. They get the social media team on. It runs so well. And ESPN has, even when they had the Field of Dreams game a couple years ago, ESPN couldn't keep up with it. And it's not like football has gotten to the point where you don't know what the commercial schedule is going to be. MLB has a clock now. You know how the timing is going to go. Do what some of the regional networks do. If it's just going to be a quick break for a quick bullpen change, go PIP. Throw the ad up there, and then as the ad's up, you can watch the pitchers start to warm up, and they can start to throw the stats up, and then go back to the announcer right as they're finishing. Other networks have figured out how to do this besides MLB and their own broadcast through MLB TV and whatnot. ESPN was just stuck in the past. And Alex, I think you're absolutely right. I think they were trying to pull a fast one, and MLB did the right thing calling their bluff. So, all right, let's move it on. Two rule changes this year. Thank God we don't have a whole slew of them to go through like we have in the last couple of years, where it seemed like there were 3 to 4 changes a year. Slight modification of the shift rule. As it is, the defensive team is required to have no more than 2 infielders on either side of second base prior to the pitch being thrown. Additionally, each infielder must be standing on the infield dirt, so you can't shift into the shallow outfield. I kind of wish they'd get rid of that rule. I don't mind seeing second basemen drift out 10, 20 feet, knowing that that's a risk if the ball's not hit hard, that they're probably not going to get to it. It's all risk versus reward. Because I'd rather see somebody be able to jump up and catch that screaming liner. The change under the new rules, the batting team may accept the result of the play, or the batter will be granted a free base, enabling any other runners to advance 1 base if there's a violation and the violating player was the first to touch the ball in play. In such a scenario, the violating player would get charged an error and no at bat would be registered to the batter, which is kind of annoying for the batter. That is what it is. Guys, quick, any thoughts on that? I just wish all I care is I just wish they could go out the second. Otherwise, I have no issue with this. The error is kind of silly, but whatever. You have to record it somehow in the scorebook. And then running through the bases for all bases other than first, obviously. Your example here, if there's runners in first and third with 2 outs, the ball is hitting the ground, the runner going to second base might opt to run straight through the bag rather than sliding in the hopes that he'd get there faster and beat the throw. If that runner beat the throw, overran the bag, he would likely get caught in a rundown and be tagged out, but it would enable the runner from third to score in the play before the third out was recorded. You saw the Yankees do a ton of this last year because not only were they trying to get that guy from third home, they were also doing it to try and break up double plays by running straight through and providing a standing target to make the throw to first harder. Previously, if the runner was called out at second in this scenario, upon review, a replay official found that he actually did beat the throw before going past the bag. The umpire would have to ignore that runner that overran the base and place him on second. Now, the umpires have the power to call the trail runner out for abandonment of second, even if they beat the throw. They're considered to abandon the bag as soon as both feet land on the other side of the bag. So, if you look back at that example, whether the runner on third scores or not depends on whether he touched home before or after the runner at second is ruled to have abandoned the base. So they kind of cleaned up the whole running through thing. I'm, to be honest, I'm really okay with running through being taken out, especially using it to try and break up a double play like that, which is honestly crap. Or hopefully they also say something to Aaron Judge about doing this sliding into second when you're obviously trying to break up a double play ball that was clearly going out when I've never ever seen that man slide into second base like this. So, Joe, what do you think? We talked about this a little last year when we, after the Judge incident, and also in noticing how often the Yankees were trying it last year.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said for taking away that element of the game by the guys that overrun the bag to try to get that run down. I mean, there's something to be said for getting rid of that, but part of me thinks that's just intelligent base running. From the standpoint of trying to keep the play alive long enough for that to happen. As far as Aaron Judge goes, look, Aaron Judge can do just about anything and not get penalized for it. Let's be honest here. There's just no way they would punish the Golden Boy. Let's just be serious. So that's not happening.
Yeah.
As far as the other thing with the shift rule stuff, I mean, it feels like to me that's going to take longer than the worries they had about putting the ABS system in for pitch reviews. I mean, you're talking about speeding up the game, and now you're going to make this longer because they're going to have to look and see, where the fielder was and whether they want the result of the play or not. I feel like that's just going to extend the game a little bit. Same with this running through the bag stuff. It's going to do stuff to extend the game that they're already complaining is too long. So I don't know.
Yeah, they're not ready to go.
Changes that didn't necessarily need to be made, I guess.
Yeah, they're not ready to go full banana ball yet, but they're getting closer to going more banana ball with more time restrictions. Zach, any other thoughts from you?
I agree with you that it's a little bit strange that they're still saying that in the shift you still have to, be on the infield dirt. I don't really see the point in that. And I think it just makes it more difficult to litigate, kind of like what Joe was talking about. So I don't think that's great for the game, but I don't think either change is huge either.
Yeah. Alex, anything else?
I kind of like when baseball players and teams can, within reason, find loopholes within the rules. I don't know. It keeps the game from being too sterile. So I get what baseball's trying to do. I don't think any of these rules are bad, but I don't know. I like when players can figure out something on the base path, like what Joe was saying. It's intelligent base running. Like, they're within the rules. So I don't know. It's like football trying to ban the tush push with the Eagles. Just because Aaron Judge is so much taller than everyone else and he can do that when he slides into second, shouldn't be a rule about it.
Yeah. To be honest, as far as the tush push goes, I just go back to the quarterback sneak. My only issue is you should be able to pick up the quarterback and shove them through. They're playing football and not rugby, but that doesn't really matter. This is a baseball podcast. Just my 2 cents. It's, to be honest, the fact that the Yankees figured that out yet last year was pretty impressive. It was a very clever use of a loophole in the rules. They did discuss it, and it wasn't just the Yankees. There were some other teams. Just the Yankees, it was more noticeable than anybody else. I mean, anything the Yankees do is always going to be more noticeable with the New York marketplace and the New York media. So that's it for overrunning the bases. Now, I fully expect at some point some of these speedier guys. I was thinking like Ellie De La Cruz, especially since we're talking Central divisions tonight. I still expect him to run past the base, but that's because there's a legitimate opportunity that he will make it back without being tagged out. So I am kind of curious to see if that's going to somewhat slow down the more aggressive runners or not, because I feel like you need to use a little bit of common sense in that rule too, because like an immediate overstep, in the example they gave, yeah, obviously it's an overstep to try and score, but it might not necessarily be. It might be somebody just hanging a little bit off the bag to see if there's another opportunity to advance. So we'll have to see how that plays out as we go. All right, let's roll it in. We'll start with the AL Central and the fifth place team last year, the Chicago White Sox, historically bad at 41 and 121. That is a 253 winning percentage. They set the record for the most losses in a single season in the modern era. Jesus H. We all thought they were going to be bad, except for Jason, who was way off last year at 82 wins. I was the closest at 56, and I was still way off, it's wild that you can predict 56 wins and miss it by that. In the last 2 seasons, the White Sox have gone down 40 wins a total, averaging 20 wins a year. The depth chart remains to be incredibly unscary almost everywhere. Corey Lee's catching, Andrew Vaughn at first, Josh Rojas at second, Miguel Vargas at third, Brooks Baldwin at short. The outfield's not bad with Benintendi and Robert, as well as Michael Tauchman. DH is Brian Ramos. Pitching, now that they've traded away everybody and given away everybody over the last 2 years, you've got Jonathan Cannon, Martin Perez, Davis Martin, Drew Thorpe, Sean Burke. None of those guys, for the record, were on the preview last year, just in case anybody was wondering. None of those guys were on there. In the bullpen, you've got Gus Varlin, Cam Boozer, Penn Murphy, Shane Smith. It doesn't matter. Nobody noticeable. They did bring in 2 old, oft-injured guys on minor league deals that we're all familiar with: Mike Clevenger, Joey Gallo. Hey, there's always a possibility one of them might be able to move up, because this isn't at best AAA, AA mixed roster. Michael Taylor's out there. They did grab Bryce Wilson. Really, nothing major really overall in the acquisitions. As I said, they traded away everybody that had a pulse that was good, other than Luis Robert, who, to be honest, I'm very surprised Luis Robert remains on the team. I'm surprised they haven't traded him, although he was pretty bad last year, so they might be seeing if he rebounds and can make a better deadline deal. Good God. This team's awful. Jason's predicting that they might hit 60 wins. He said maybe, LOL. But he is going to keep them firmly in 5th place. I'm also going to keep them firmly in 5th place. You can't be as bad as historically bad last year. I know there's nothing on the roster. I'm going to go 45. They're still going to lose 100 games. This team ain't going anywhere. Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, I just, looking at the acquisitions and the dollar amounts there, I mean, if that all works out, don't tell Jed Hoyer that it works out, because that intelligent spending their $1 million contracts for a year, or $3.5 million for a year. I mean, this crap's not going to work. But I mean, I have no idea. I mean, it can't get much worse, right?
That's the theory. But
I mean, you know what? I'm gonna go lower. They're gonna have a record-breaking year again.
Oh man!
And it's gonna be the winning percentage too, because the winning percentage was actually better than that Mets team that had 120 losses.
Yeah, because we played more.
They had a bunch of wins at the end of the year. So
yeah,
I'm gonna go 38. Why not?
Jesus Christ. Ooh, 38. Oh, God. That's why we should have relegations. I sometimes think we need to do relegation. Jason just popped on. He said, popping in for a quick moment, saying, "Hey, boys, thanks for joining Zach and Alex." And Zach's outnumbered. Jason's going to say, "Go Cards." Jason always was a sucker for teams that are red and teams that have baby blue uniforms. Let's be real here. Alex, what are your thoughts on the train wreck on the south side of Chicago?
I never want to wish pain on anyone. As a Cubs fan, I love this. We have no competition for being the best team in Chicago. That said, we have nothing pushing Jed Hoyer to be better. I think this is a risky deal for Clevenger and Joey Gallo because they have an easy path to the majors to potentially get back. But if they can't get to the majors on this roster, then their career is done, which I think is a very interesting path for them to take. I am going to go bold, though, but in the opposite direction from Joe, 63 wins. I think they're not going to lose 100 games this year. Well, they can't. They can't be this bad this many years in a row. The odds it can't happen. Like, that doesn't exist in reality. So I'm going to be kind and go 63 wins.
Andrew, can you look up how many wins Garrett Crochet had last year?
Yep. Let's see. Garrett Crochet last year went 6-12 with a respectable 3.58 ERA.
Jeez. Yeah. No.
Yeah. Garrett Crochet accounted for 4.1 WAR. If I am not mistaken, I don't think anybody else had over 2. Let me look here. Oh, Jesus. Luis Robert had 1.4. He was the highest offensive player. 4 starters, including the DH, had a negative WAR because Eloy was the DH for most of the year. Wow, there's a lot of negative WAR on the bench, too. Pitching wise, okay, Fetty was 4.7 and had 7 wins, too. So that's 8 WAR that's gone and has not been replaced with signings. You sure about 63 there, dude?
I said it. I'm going to stick with it. 63 wins. I'm not confident.
I wouldn't be either. White Sox are about to say, hold my beer and watch this. As they are, let's remind you, in spring training, they're in the same facility as the Dodgers. You have the best team in baseball and the worst team in baseball in the same complex. And there's just something cosmically hilarious about that. Zach, how low are you going to go? Because I feel like we're just doing oh man.
Yeah, we're gonna be all over the place on this team. We're down to 38. We got as high as 63. I'll split the middle, kinda. I guess I'm being optimistic. I thought I was being kind of optimistic, going 52 and 110. And I'll be honest, I agree with you. I don't think they can be like historically bad again. But I also just kind of picked a record that would normally be horrendous and is somehow still 11 games better than what they were last year.
Jason said Alex trusting the gut and maybe the bad juju rubs off in the Dodgers. I wouldn't be upset if that happens, but when you're deferring $1 billion in salary over the next decade to make Bobby Bonilla a joke, I'd be surprised. All right, we'll move it on to last place. Fourth place team was the Minnesota Twins at 82 and 80. Yeah, let's remember every other team in the AL Central last year was over 500. The White Sox were just so damn awful. Like, oh God.
I mean, so of course the rest of the division is going to be over 500. They play the White Sox 13 times a year.
So Joe, mad props. You nailed the Twins prediction. You had it perfect at 82 last year. Bravo, bud. You were not correct in them being first by tiebreaker, but you nailed the wins, which is damn impressive to do on shows like this. Depth chart for the Twins: Ryan Jefferson, Christian Vasquez catching, Ty France at first, Brooks Lee at second, Royce Lewis at third, Carlos Correa at shortstop. Outfield, Matt Wallner, Byron Buxton when he's healthy for 60 games maybe, and Trevor Larnach, and DH Jose Miranda. Solid pitching. Pablo Lopez, Joe Ryan, Bailey Ober, Chris Paddock, Simeon Woods Richardson. They still have one of the best closers in baseball in Jahan Duran, although we will Emmanuel Clase will have something to say about that a little later, but Duran's, honestly, he's still a damn solid reliever. Griffin Jacks, Brock Stewart, Cole Sands, Danny Colombe, Jorge Alcala. Let's see, not too much in the re-signings. They did bring back guys like Stewart, Tonkin Tapa. Ty France was a big acquisition. Harrison Bader at 1 year, 6.25, and Danny Colombe. A couple minor trades, nothing too major in and out there. And nobody really that big that they lost. I'd say the biggest loss was Daniel Duarte, which really isn't a huge loss at all, in my humble opinion. Jason's prediction was 87th, and they're going to jump all the way up to first place. And he only has the Twins making the playoff from the AL Central this year, which I tend to agree. The fact that they got more than one team in last year was shocking. I'm kind of with them. I don't know that more than one team's going to get in this year. Alex, go ahead. What are your thoughts on the Twins?
I low-key like the Twins a lot. I think they have been relatively successful and pretty efficient with how they spent their money over the past few years. Carlos Correa is, I think, underrated in the top of the shortstop game in baseball. The dude can bat. He consistently bats. The dude can just bat. Byron Buxton, I've always been high on him, minus the injuries. Everyone, I think, can, say that the injuries are what have derailed his career in a lot of ways. So I really do like them, and their pitching is always solid, at least recently. So I'm going to go 88 wins, and I do think they're going to win the division as well.
88 and first. Zach, what do you think?
I like the Twins pitching a lot. I think they were better last year than where they ended up. They kind of slid as teams like the Royals and the Tigers kind of caught up to them. So I do think that they're going to be back and be a little bit better. I've got them at 85 wins in second. I think they're going to be better. Man, I'd love to see a healthy season from Buxton. Have we had one? Like one full season?
Let's see. Byron Buxton. Yeah, 2017, he played 140 games. And that's his career high, 140.
Yeah, and I don't even know if he was fully, Byron Buxton at that point. So I'd love to see it. And I thought obviously raises their ceiling, but I feel like I kind of have to bake that in a little bit. So I'll put him at 85.
Yeah, last year was actually number 2 all time for games played for Buxton. He had 102 games in last year. So, and solid line, 279, 335, 524, 18 homers, 56 ribbies. He stole 7 bags because, they don't want to risk his knees running. Solid numbers, 99 strikeouts, 20 walks. I mean, that's not great, but he produces, which is more than you could say most. And when you project that out over 162 games, career-wise, he averages about 41 and 174. So he's staying career-wise under that 200 strikeout mark, which is awesome to see. And not enough batters feel shame when they hit 200 strikeouts anymore, to quote recent tweets from Chipper Jones, among others. I forgot to give a wins prediction, guys. Sorry. I'm going to say I think I'm going to split Jason and Zach and go about 86. I actually think they're going to be – I think that'll be good for second, though. I think 86 and second. Joe, what do you think?
I'm going to go with 84.
Okay.
And I think they'll actually probably stay in fourth.
Okay.
I just don't think that we've seen enough consistency from, we've already talked about Buxton, obviously, but I'm just not sure if they did enough to improve more than that.
Okay. I'm not gonna lie, I do low key like them picking up Ty France. I think that's going to really help them shore up first base. That was definitely a bit of a hole for them last year. We'll have to see what happens with the Twins. They should be exciting to watch, though, if nothing else. And they're always a pesky team to put away when you're in a series with them. All right, and then probably I think the biggest surprise. No, this is the second biggest surprise out of the AL Central last year. The Detroit Tigers, 86 and 76, third in the Central, wild card 3. Which again, who the hell saw that coming? They lost the ALDS to the Guardians 3-2. That was a great series, by the way. That ALDS between the Guardians and the Tigers last year, that was fantastic baseball. I was actually kind of hoping the Tigers were going to push through one more round. I was closest last year. I said 85. Joe was the second closest at 82. They actually went up 8 wins from year to year. Looking at the depth chart, Jake Rogers and Dylan Dingler at catcher. Colt Keith is listed currently as the starting first baseman. Torkelson's listed number 2. That's MLB's depth chart when I checked last night. Gleyber Torres at second. Jace Jung at third. Trey Sweeney at short. Javi Baez, thankfully, is down at 2, where he probably should just stay for them because God knows nobody's going to pick up that contract. Outfield, Vierling, Parker Meadows, Riley Green, DH, Kerry Carpenter. And this is a sneaky good pitching staff. You have last year's Cy Young winner anchoring the staff with Tariq Skubal. They brought back Jack Flaherty on honestly a solid deal, 2 years, 35. He has some escalators that can boost that up based on numbers of starts this year. Reese Olson, Casey Meisen, Jackson Jobe. The bullpen, that's definitely a weaker part than the starters. Jason Foley, Tyler Holton, Tommy Canley, Will Vest, Bo Brisky. Honestly, I really kind of dig what the Tigers did this offseason, bringing Flaherty back. John Brebbia is not a bad pickup at 2.75 with a team option. Canley will give him some innings out of the bullpen. I think Gleyber Torres solid infield pickup as well. I kind of like what they're doing here, guys. 86 wins last year. That was a complete surprise. I thought I was nuts when I said 85 last year. I didn't realize it'd be that freaking close. The rest of the division, you do see improvement. I don't know that they're going to quite stay there. I think they're going to go back, but just a touch. I'm going to go back to 85. Jason thinks they're really going to fall off this year and drop all the way down to 75 and 4th. So I'm going to go 85 wins for me. Zach, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I've got them at 83 wins and 3rd, and I like this team. I mean, it was kind of fun getting to watch them in the playoffs. I didn't really get to watch them during the regular season too much. They're a fun team. I mean, you see the stuff out of the rotation with Skubal, obviously, but their lineup was, doing some stuff in the playoffs as well. So I don't know how sustainable that is over the course of a season, but I think they're fun, and I think they're going to be in the mix.
Yeah, definitely in the mix. Joe, what do you got?
I'm going to say I'm going to go 88.
Ooh.
And I'm not sure where they'll be in the division just yet.
Okay. Division placement TBD until you're done making predictions, right?
Right. Towards the end here.
Nothing wrong with that. Alex, what are your thoughts?
I love the Tigers. I so desperately want them to be an amazing team next year. There's going to be regression. There just is. I'm going 80 wins, 3rd in the division. But my first wild prediction of the night,
all right,
Javi Baez is going to be the starting second baseman by the end of the year. Yep.
Starting second baseman by the end of the year. I love the random wild predictions you throw in every year. It really does add great color. And when I look back at them year to year, I'm like, that one was pretty good. That one was batshit. Because really, when you throw these out there really is not much middle ground. It's either insane or it's nuts.
And mostly insane, let's be honest.
Oh, yeah, absolutely mostly insane. I know that better than most. I've known you longer than most. All right, next up, we got the Royals. Probably the biggest surprise in the Central, and honestly, one of the biggest surprises in baseball last year, as I think like Ken Palm and others had them at like maybe a 2.5% chance to make the playoffs. And they blew that out of the water and went to 86 and 76. They were the second wild card. They were eliminated by the Yankees 3-1 in the ALDS. I was very disappointed by that, but happy they didn't get swept. Joe, you were the closest at 65. That's one. They really did. They truly surprised everybody last year. None of us were close on that one. They went up 30 wins from 23 to 24. That's nuts. That's one of the biggest year-to-year swings we've ever seen on the show. A lot to like on this depth chart. Salvador Perez still catching with Freddie Furman backing him up. Vinny Pasquantino at first, and Salvi also will play first to give his knees a break here and there. Jonathan India, newly acquired via trade from the Reds, at second. Michael Garcia at third. The absolutely ridiculous and will get a freaking AL MVP award one of these years away from Aaron Judge, Mr. Bobby Witt Jr. Outfield, MJ Melendez, Kyle Isbell, Hunter Renfroe, Michael Macy at DH, and a sneaky solid starting rotation of Cole Reagan, Seth Lugo, Michael Wacha, Michael Lorenzen, and Chris Bubik. In the bullpen, Carlos Hernandez will be the starting closer for the year. Lucas Ursag, Hunter Harvey, James MacArthur, Sam Long, among others. They brought back their core. They made some lower level moves, and then they ran and got Jonathan India from the Reds along with Joey Weimer. And all they traded back was one of their spare pitchers, Brady Singer. I really like that deal for the Royals. I think the Reds really, after India kind of had a sophomore slump, they really kind of gave up on him completely. I think the Reds undersold Jonathan India, and hope he gets a chance to prove them wrong this year. Not really too much in the way of losses. Tommy Pham and Adam Frazier and Will Smith were probably the biggest three. So if that's your big three in losses, that's not too bad at all. So they were at 86 last year in second. I am going to put the Royals. Jason has them 85 in second. I'm going to make a bigger swing here. I think the Royals jump to 91 wins and they take the division. So 91 and first place for me. Joe, what's your thoughts?
I would say probably. You know what? I'm gonna go 92. I'm gonna one up you, go 92, and they do win this division.
All right, Joe at 92 and the division. All right,
he's and India is a huge upgrade over Adam Frazier or Paul DeYoung. Like, that's a huge upgrade.
Yeah, absolutely.
At that position.
Even Jonathan India only playing like 3/4 of a season is a huge upgrade over what they had at second base.
Right.
Alex, what do you think?
I do also think last year they heavily overachieved. Odds are there's going to be some regression in overall season success. But I'm going to say the record's going to be better, just barely at 87 wins. Okay. I can't bet against Bobby Witt. I just can't bet against that guy. The dude is baseball.
Yeah. I love watching him play. He is one of the most exciting players in baseball to watch play. And I say that having Ronald Acuna on my team. I love watching Bobby Witt. He is awesome. He's got a great combination of speed, contact, power, and he plays great defense out there too. So much fun to watch. Like
but Acuna would have to play baseball for him to be exciting.
So true. I'm hoping we see that this year because baseball is always better when stars are playing. Wasn't Bryce Harper who said that last year? Good quote from him, actually. Zach, what do you think?
I'm happy to have Jonathan India out of the NL Central. It kind of seemed like he always did damage against us. But that said, Joe, I'll not hear any Paul DeYoung slander. I'm way off of you guys. I'm fading the hell out of the Royals. I'm putting them in fourth place at 78 wins. Ooh. And it's for kind of a specific reason. I mean, it sort of boils down to offense, but they were almost dead average as a team in OPS plus. They were actually a little below league average. but they spiked to one of the best offenses in baseball with runners in scoring position. It was really fluky the way it worked out. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they can do it again. But for me, beyond Bobby Witt Jr., there's just not a ton that I like about their offense or that I feel is sustainable. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. I thought they had a little bit of a miracle season last year. I could be surprised, and I would like the Royals to be good. I think that's very cool for baseball, but I'm fading them this year.
I don't necessarily disagree with you. To be honest, the Royals really remind me the most of a central version of the Seattle Mariners, just with a ballpark you can actually hit in, unlike Seattle, which is absolutely 100% the best pitcher's park in baseball. But with that rotation, the Royals don't need to score a ton of runs. That's a really good rotation to run out there. Is it the Yankees? No, but it's still a damn good rotation that should it's going to get them some traction this year. I'm they're probably going to fall somewhere between you and Joe. Because I think you're right. That's probably about the lowest benchmark they're going to go down to. So we'll have to see where they fall in between that. And hell, they might even excite us and surprise us and blow the top off of Joe's prediction. We'll have to see. And then last year's AL Central champions, the Guardians of Cleveland at 92-69. They were eliminated by the Yankees in the pennant. 4-1 in what was a most notably uncompetitive series outside Game 3 that went into extra innings when Cleveland said, well, we'll be alive enough not to get swept. Ron was actually the closest of all of us last year. He predicted 84-85 wins. The closest non-ranged prediction was Jason at 80 last year. They did go up 16 wins, so it's kind of wild. We every year we've done the show, the Guardians jump in chunks. They went up 12, they dropped 16, they went up 16. That's so strange to see a team bop up and down that far from year to year. The depth chart catching is Bo Naylor and Austin Hedges. Carlos Santana is back once again at first base. It just doesn't feel right to see Carlos Santana anywhere else. Just stay with the Guardians till you retire, dude. Juan Brito at second, Jose Ramirez at third, probably the best third baseman in the AL right now. I think we can make a fair case for that. Brian Rocchio at shortstop, outfield of Steve Kwan, Lane Thomas, and Yansky Noel. Kyle Manzardo at DH. This is where I'm hedging my bets with the Guardians. The rotation: Tanner Bibby, Gavin Williams, Luis Ortiz, Ben Lively, Joey Cantillo. It should be noted Shane Bieber will be back at some point this season. He had Tommy John back in April last year, so he'll probably be back. I'd say maybe mid-season, 2/3 of the way through the season. So it's kind of like getting a guy in the trade without giving anything up. So we'll see what they get out of that. They do have a great bullpen. Emmanuel Clase at closing, although he was awful in the playoffs last year. Paul Sewald, Hunter Gaddis, Tim Hare, and Andrew Walters. So they did grab John Means. I thought that was an interesting one-year flyer. John Means might be something worthwhile. We'll have to see about that. I always love seeing Colby Allard stretch it out one more year. He'll probably spend most of the year in the minors, come up, make a couple spot starts here and there, and then break his arm yet again because the man's got a glass cannon for an arm. Nothing big in the trades. They did get Alfonso Rosario from the Cubs, sending back Eli Morgan. Otherwise, not really much. The big one I didn't understand was bringing Slade Kekakini in from the Diamondbacks and giving up Josh Naylor. They did not get nearly enough back from Naylor. Jason has them going down to 81 wins in third place. I think this team has the potential to dip below 500. I think they're going to go down to 79 wins. So I don't know where the heck that puts me in the total predictions, but I'm going to say 79. Whose turn is it? Zach, I think you're up first this time. What do you think?
I think the Guardians are just well run. I'm going to go 86 in first, actually, but at 86 wins, I don't love anybody in this division. I think it's going to be a lot of pretty good teams, and then the White Sox. But I just think they're well run. I think they have enough.
Yeah. It is hard to pick a runaway favorite team in this division. Joe, what do you got?
I think I'm kind of where Zach is, that 86 number. That seems to be a reasonable drop. I don't think they're going to have the massive drop that they've had every other year lately. So I'm going to say 86. I think, like you said, losing Naylor is a bit of a hit there. I don't know that I trust the middle infield as much as I did a year ago.
Yeah.
For them, that middle infield that they had made up for Francona leaving, because I thought they were going to have a huge drop off last year with that, and that was a difference maker. So I'm going to say 86.
And then, I mean, great power in the corners, but not much up the middle. Alex, where are you putting them?
I was going to go with 88, but I have the Twins at 88 wins. I think I'm going to go 87, same as the Royals. But those three teams to me are, again, love that Tigers, but any of them could drop off like a rock. Any of them could get up to 92 wins. It's really hard. I really, though, agree they're a well-run franchise. I love Jose Ramirez. I think he's one of the most underrated players in baseball. And so, second place, 88 wins, tied with Minnesota, but they're going to get second place.
Who's tiebreaker to Minnesota? Okay. All right, that's it for the AL Central. Travis hopped on to just comment to Jason. They have uniforms and everything. It's really great. Hey, you never know with that bad juju what can happen. Just saying. All right, let's roll into a division that the four of us actually have some more knowledge about from watching the NL Central. We will start with last year's last place team with the second worst owner in baseball right now, the Pittsburgh Pirates, even though they have one of the best pitchers in baseball right now. Last year they went 76 and 86, fifth in the Central. Ron was the closest to that, 77. Missed that one by one, so good prediction there for Ron. Zach, you weren't far off either, 74. So actually, that's the exact same as they had. Okay, so they had no win change from 23 to 24, which I know we were all kind of expecting a little bit of the youth movement to finally make a jump, and the Pirates were the Pirates, as they often are. Depth chart, Joey Bart, Henry Davis catching, Spencer Horwitz at first, Nick Gonzalez at second, Brian Hayes at third, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa at shortstop, Tommy Pham in the outfield with O'Neill Cruz and Brian Reynolds, and of course, Andrew McCutchen at DH. He is another one of those guys. You're where you need to be, buddy. That's where you stay until you decide to retire. Do not go anywhere else ever again. Pitching, Paul Skeens, and then Jared Jones, Mitch Keller, Andrew Heaney, Bubba Chandler. Closing, David Bednard's on. He's been like sneaky solid for years as a closer. I'm always amazed the Pirates don't trade him at the deadline, because that would just be 100% in line with what they do. Dennis Santana as well, Colin Holderman, Carmen Wodzinski, Kyle Nicholas, and Caleb Ferguson. Not really a ton in the acquisition department, as they never really do much in the offseason. Bringing in Tommy Pham and Adam Frazier were the big moves for them. I didn't really see anybody of note go away. I guess Brian De La Cruz, but he was pretty awful last year. Jason has them at 73 wins. He thinks they are going to regress slightly more, even with Paul Skeens, and he has them in fifth place as well. See, this is a team that should not be this bad, and they have one of the nicest, if not the nicest, ballpark in baseball. I'm really disappointed they couldn't get to the 82-win benchmark I had them at last year. I think they're going to do slightly better with a full season of Paul Skeens. I'm going to hedge my bet slightly from last year. I'm going to go 81 wins. 81. Joey, what do you think?
I'm going to go 78. That's the most I see out of a full year of Paul Skeens, or Mr. Libby Dunn, as they say sometimes. To me, it's ridiculous. I don't understand how you can have some of the talent that they did have and let it walk away, trade it away like they do. I agree with you. The fact that Bednar is still there is mind blowing to me. Other than the fact that teams probably, I think he had 2 years of control last year, so I think teams probably just didn't want to
Pay for
dump
that.
too much into that return. But the pitching is a lot to be excited about. The rest of it, other than Brian Hayes, doesn't really excite me all that much.
Yeah. I mean, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa is, he is what he is at shortstop. He should be solid at least for them. But yeah, it's hard to find a lot to like about this team. Alex, what do you think?
Pirates and the Cubs are both similar in that they are really good at underdeveloping talent and not succeeding to the level that they should. I'm gonna go optimistic on the Pirates. I think Brian Hayes is going to do better, and he's going to be more consistent than he was last year. I think O'Neal Cruz and Brian Reynolds are finally going to be consistently above average, if not really good next year as well. They also changed some of their staff. I'm really optimistic on some of the pitching coaches that they've changed out. Paul Skeens is going to be great. I think he's going to win Cy Young. I think Jared Jones is going to take that step into being a close to frontline number one starter as well. All that said, the Pirates are going to start off in April and they're going to be like 19-2 in the month, and then they're going to drop off. I'm going to go 84 wins, don't get third place. I'm going to be optimistic and be kind to them.
84 and third. All right. Zach, what do you think?
I'm not going to be kind to them. I'll go 77 in fifth. And hey, I mean, for a fifth place team, 77 wins, you could do a lot worse. I mean, they are the Pirates. I think I'm undervaluing them a little bit, but I over the years, I think they've just kind of been put in the spot of I'll believe it when I see it with the Pirates. There are some things to be excited about, but I also don't know how much help might be coming at the trade deadline if they are competitive. How much are they really going to go for it? How much of this is going to be a heavy lift by the guys that they currently have? I'm just gonna sell for now. Sell the Pirate stock for now. Got them in fifth place.
Yeah, that's fair. And again, the Pirates had us all believing last year that they might not completely suck, and they ended up mostly sucking. To be fair, when they lost Brian Hayes for a month and a half to injury last year, that's really when they fell off. I mean, if Brian Hayes stays healthy, they have a chance to at least be mediocre to average instead of just bad. And they can rest safe knowing that of all the central teams in both leagues, there is no way they will be the 10th out of 10th this year. No way in hell with the White Sox. Such a beautiful stadium, though. I do want to go out there and see a game this year. It's been a while. All right. Next up, we've got the Reds, who went 77 and 85 last year. They were fourth. Alex, you were the closest, 79, just off by 2. Bravo, bud. Although we were all pretty dialed around, except for me, who was stupidly optimistic and should have known better. So they did go down 3 wins from 23 to 24 after jumping 20 last year. The depth chart: Tyler Stevenson and Jose Trevino catching, Spencer Steer at first, Matt McLean at second, Gavin Lux at third, and Ellie De La Cruz at short. One of the best players in the entire division, if you ask me. Outfield: Austin Hayes, TJ Friedel, Will Benson, Jake Fraley, Yeimer Candelario at DH. Pitching: Hunter Green when healthy and when finding the strike zone. Nick Martinez, Nick Lodolo, Brady Singer, Andrew Abbott. In the bullpen, Alexis Diaz, definitely the worst of the Diaz brothers. Taylor Rogers, Emilio Pagan, Scott Barlow, Tony Santillan, and Sam Mole. So how much? Here's the big question. How much is the Terry Francona effect going to help this club? Because initially, when I was looking at how am I going to predict this one, I'm thinking I kind of fell in love with the youth movement last year. The youth movement really petered out and made that prediction look bad. And I thought, we're going to see a lot of the same. And then they got Terry Francona out of retirement. And now I'm just thinking to myself, this might not be as bad as it was last year with a competent manager and a damn good manager at that. Competence really not giving him enough credit. Jason hedging his bets a little bit. Jason has him at 80. I said 84 last year. I think I'm going to stick with 84 again, but I won't be surprised if they do a little bit better than 84. I won't be surprised if that ends up being the case. Zach, since the Cubbies are up next on the sheet, why don't you go ahead? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was sort of optimistic on them last year. I had them as a 500 team last year. They disappointed a little bit, but I'm with you. I got to give them the Tito bump. I think I'm going to go 82 wins in third.
And Gavin Lux might bounce back and back to where he was before he got hurt originally with the Dodgers. Who knows? We'll see. Joe, what do you think?
I'm with Zach on this one. I'm going to go 82. I think the like we've said, the Francona effect is I think a real deal, and it will make a difference here.
Alex?
Love Terry Francona. I still think they're going to be under 500. It's going to take a year. But I'm going to go just barely. I'm going to go 80 wins, and Ellie De La Cruz is going to be the most exciting player in the NL Central.
Is that the wild prediction there? I like it. I do. I love watching the guy play. He is so good. I really hope he doesn't have Acuna's knees because I want to see him running like a maniac every year until he retires, a la like a Vince Coleman kind of guy or Otis Nixon or, one of those guys that just, even Ricky, although he's never going to catch Ricky's stolen base record. No chance in hell of that ever happening. All right. Joe, do you want to go ahead with the Cubs? I'll let you and Alex take the lead on this one.
So last year they were 83 and 79, good for third in the NL Central. Zach was the closest on them last year at 84. I think the only reason I had him at 88 because I bought some of the Homer hype, I guess maybe. that was a short-sighted pick on my part. Their win change, they didn't change anything from 23 to 24, so that intelligent spending is paying off, I guess. At the catcher position, they have Carson Kelly and Miguel Amaya, Michael Busch at first, Nico at second, if and when he's healthy, Matt Shaw at third, Dansby at short, Ian Happ, PCA, and Kyle Tucker in the outfield, and Seiya at DH. Pitching-wise, Shota, Justin Steele, Tyone, Matthew Boyd, I think they picked him up from Cleveland or just as a free agent. And then Javier Assad too. Wouldn't be surprised if Jordan Wicks is either bullpen or spot starter or something like that from the starting side. Bullpen, they have Ryan Presley, Porter Hodge, Julian Merriweather, hopefully a healthy year for Julian Merriweather, Keegan Thompson, Ryan Brazier, Luke Little, and Nate Pearson. And, of course, they still have Tommy Hotovy, so pitching is one of their better things as an organization and developing pitching, I think. They didn't re-sign anybody. I don't think anybody was really – I mean, I don't know. It was a bit of a mess this offseason, I think.
Joe, we know you wanted Alzolay back again after such a great campaign as closer last year.
I'm not saying anything on that one. As far as acquisitions, they did pick up Justin Turner this week or last week. They also had Nicky Lopez on a minor league deal, John Birdie as a utility infield guy. Some of the other guys we mentioned, Presley, Vidal Brujan, Kyle Tucker, obviously. The losses, other than Adbert, Brennan Davis was traded or let go. Mike Talkman, who we've mentioned already. I don't have to worry about Patrick Wisdom swinging at something that's nowhere close, so that's good. And you don't have on here that Belly got traded, which was weird to me. You missed that on the sheet.
Oh yeah, I forgot to put it on. Sorry.
I mean, I think that was the biggest, I guess, surprise move. I wasn't sure if they were going to pull that off or not. And then I think Canario, who they traded last week to the Mets, they just have an embarrassment of riches in AAA in the outfield. So there's no way that Canario was going to get adequate playing time. So, and we've talked about the trade. So that's kind of the offseason for them in a nutshell. I don't know how I feel about that. I want other people to say how they feel about him before I say anything else.
All right. Well, Jason went 88 wins, first place, and he also thinks there's only going to be one playoff team out of the Central this year, which I tend to agree with that. Alex, what do you think, dude?
Kyle Tucker is better than Cody Bellinger. I think that's a solid. If we're going to look at that as essentially a 1-for-1 swap, I think that's solid. I actually think we kind of stole the Kyle Tucker trade in a lot of ways. What we gave up, I think that's absolutely worth it. It's rough only being a year, knowing likely we're not going to re-sign him, even though we should. Look, catcher is a little bit, we'll see what kind of happens with catcher. I don't know if it's really going to I don't think it's going to kill us, but I don't think it's going to be great. Other than that, the bullpen is the only really weak spot for me on the roster. I think our front three starters are solid. I think they're going to be really good. The back end still should be good for starters, hopefully. But there's not, other than Kyle Tucker, there's just not a lot of excitement at the plate here.
I don't know, man. I want to see PCA get buzzed twice and then just have a mic dropping towering home run like he did in AAA last year. That's still one of my favorite clips from last year. Watching him get almost nailed twice, watch his manager get tossed, and then just smoke one 450 feet to center. That was pretty sweet. He's fun to watch, man. He's so fast.
He's so fun. And in the field especially, I love watching him in the field. He's incredible in the field.
Web gems. Web gems.
Yeah, he's one of those people you got to bring it back for sure. I do like the Justin Turner pickup as well. I think that's good depth for us. I think it's good experience in the background there. He can potentially step in at multiple positions if we really need him to in a pinch, although I think his days at third base are over. Look, I was high on the Cubs last year. I think the Craig Counsell effect is going to come into play a little bit more this year. I really do. So I do think we're going to win the division, but barely at 88 wins.
88 and division. All right. Zach, you know, splash some water on him?
I'm not. I'm pretty high on the Cubs as well. It was PCA the main piece they got back in the Baez trade. Man, what a deal! Golly, I know Baez was all right for the Mets, I guess, but man, you do that every time. Look, just listening to you talk about all the acquisitions, I'm pretty envious. It must be nice. A little foreshadowing. We'll get to that, but it's honestly, I hate the Cubs, but it's nice to see a team actually going for it in the NL Central. Like they're clearly trying to win the division, which I respect a lot. And Kyle Tucker's I think he's a top 10 player in baseball. Like I love Kyle Tucker. He's unbelievable. If it's possible for him to be underrated, I think he is. But I look at the Cubs, and something that stuck out to me last year was their expected win-loss, which is just generated based off run differential. They were -5 in terms of their expected win-loss based off of it was like plus 65 run differential or something. That's pretty significant. You don't see that a whole lot. So I think they were a better team last year than the record showed, and I think they got better. So I've got them at 90 wins, and I've got them winning the division as the only team making the playoffs in the NL Central.
Yeah. Good news for you guys. Kyle Tucker is not a Scott Boras client, so there is a chance that an extension could be done during the season and or during spring training. To be honest, I'm shocked one wasn't included as a rider with the trade with the Astros. I am a little surprised that was not a contingent of that trade, that an extension be signed, but Jed's going to
We're
Jed.
talking about you have no right to be surprised. That is freaking stupid.
That's true. That's true.
They quarreled over a $1.5 million in freaking arbitration this year for him.
Of course they did. I completely forgot about arbitration with Tucker. Yeah, that was idiotic. Anyway, I am high on the Cubs this year as well. Alex, by the way, your wild prediction last year for the first Cy Young for Mark Leiter flopped pretty bad. I just want to throw that out there. I said 91 last year. I like what they did. I like the top of the rotation. I like that you actually have a reliable closer now with Presley, because that was also part of the problem with the early struggles with the Cubs was nobody knew that Alzolay was going to take a complete 180 from what he did the year before that. That was completely unexpected. Oh man, it's screw it. I'm going to do it. I'll do it again. I'm going to one up my prediction. I'm going to go 92 and the division. There's not going to be a juggernaut team out of the Central this year. This is an overall relatively weak division where the top three teams are largely interchangeable depending on how a couple breaks fall. So I'm going to say 92 and they do take the division. Plus, God knows it can't be fucking Milwaukee again. Joe, what do you think?
You know, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go 87.
Okay.
I'm just, to me, there were too many free agents this offseason where if as serious as we believe them to be, are teams that you just can't miss on. I think there are a couple of them that I thought. I mean, do I believe that Matt Shaw is going to be great? Yes, I do. But trusting a guy who's barely out of high school with third base when you haven't had a reliable third baseman since Chris Bryant, and Chris Bryant fell off come 2018. So you haven't had a reliable third baseman for 6 years. This is, to me, missing out on Bregman because of the AAV is just stupid. It's absolutely stupid. I just don't understand that part of it. And they have as much pitching as the Cubs have in AAA. A lot of it, when they've had opportunities at the Major League Club, has not performed well. Caleb Killian, who was the big acquisition in the return for the KB trade, has not materialized at all. I'm just, the Cubs are the Cubs, and I'm just not willing to believe the hype. I'm just not.
That's fair. That's fair. All right, Zach, what about the Cardinals?
Okay. Yeah. St. Louis Cardinals 2024 were 83 and 79. Good enough for, I'll say, a share of second place in the NL Central with the Cubs. I don't know how it officially shook out, but they had the same record as the Cubs. Jason was the
tiebreaker. They were second.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then, yeah. Full sole possession of second place in the NL Central. Jason was the closest last year, predicting he had 84 wins. So he was one high, but the closest. I was the most optimistic, but even I was only at 85. They did go up by 12 games from their disastrous 2023 when they lost 91 games. So that was cool to see a semi-competitive looking team, but don't be fooled. This was not a great team. I I mentioned the expected win-loss for the Cubs being -5. The Cardinals was +7. They by their run differential was -47. They were expected to win 76 games, and they came away with 83 somehow. So that's probably indicative of a bad team masquerading as a fringe playoff contender, and they really weren't as close as the record showed. We'll get into a little bit of that later, but getting into the depth chart, I want to highlight the catcher battle, as I think that's going to be something to watch this year. Ivan Herrera and Pedro Pajes. The fans, every Cardinal fan I've ever heard speak about the matter wants Ivan Herrera to be the everyday guy, but the Cardinals just seem to kind of like Pedro Pajes. I think they prefer him defensively. I guess pitchers like throwing to him, like the way he receives the ball, blah, blah, blah. Ivan Herrera has an 800 OPS, so he needs to be the guy. But I don't trust them to necessarily nail that. I think both guys are going to play a lot, but excited to watch Ivan Herrera. He was a great surprise last year, actually one of our better offensive players. So hopefully he's playing a lot, even if he's not catching, hopefully in DH. Over at first base is last year's catcher, Wilson Contreras. I'm actually really happy about this move, not because I think Wilson's a terrible catcher or anything, but the organization did talk about wanting to move forward with giving some young guys opportunities. So obviously Herrera there, but Wilson also missed some time with some injuries that were directly related to catching. I believe it was JD Martinez broke his arm, on a swing. So with Wilson really being our best offensive player or one of our best offensive players, we need him playing as close to 162 as possible. So I'm very happy with this change. I think it'll be good. At second base, probably mostly Nolan Gorman. Brendan Donovan's going to play over there sometimes as well. Third base, Nolan Arenado. As long as he is with the team, which he currently is, he's going to be anchored over there at third. Mason Wynn at shortstop, coming off a really exciting rookie year, kind of overshadowed because there are so many exciting young shortstops in the game today. But Mason Wynn is definitely one of my favorite current Cardinals. He's fun to watch. In the outfield, Lars Nootbaar and Jordan Walker kind of going to be the mainstays, and then you'll see a combination of some other guys. Brendan Donovan's going to play pretty much every day, but he's sort of the Swiss Army knife of the team. He'll play second, third, left, wherever he needs to be. And then Alec Burleson is kind of your DH/first base type. They have played him in the outfield. You'd like to avoid it, but kind of a power hitting lefty. In the rotation, they've got Sonny Gray and Eric Fetty, two guys that they added last year. Gray was from free agency. Fetty was in a trade with the White Sox. Miles Michaelis is coming back for his farewell tour. This is the final season of that horrendous extension that they gave to him. I mean, it was a bad deal, but like on top of the deal, they gave him a no trade clause, which is like, it's Miles Michaelis. Like, what are we doing? But this should be the final year of that. Andre Palante, who was really good last year. He was kind of a bullpen guy that ended up getting 20 starts last year and had a 1.11 ERA plus. So excited to see what he does moving forward. And then Steven Matz, we'll pencil in Steven Matz for a rotation spot. He hasn't been healthy, so I don't have a lot of confidence that he's going to get too many starts this year. But sort of waiting in the wings, you've got Michael McGreevy, who's one of our young starters, and he sort of had a cup of coffee with the team last year and was pretty good. So I don't want anybody to get hurt, but I'm hoping McGreevy gets 15, 20, 25 starts. I think that'd be awesome. In the bullpen, it was a pretty good unit last year. I think it's going to be pretty good this year. Ryan Helsley, closer, he's all world. He's awesome. He also probably shouldn't be on the team. We'll get into that later. Jojo Romero, Ryan Fernandez is nasty, John King, Riley O'Brien, Kyle Leahy, and some combination of Gordon Graceffo, Matthew Liberatore, Zach Thompson, etc. They've got a lot of options in the bullpen. I'm pretty comfortable with that part of their team. I think they'll be decent. But now we get into the off season, which is where it gets kind of spicy. I can't really recall an off season where there was so much talk and such little change. They didn't re-sign anybody, and they didn't really sign anybody new of note. I think they bought a utility guy off the Twins and took a couple flyers in the bullpen, but really nothing of note. It was an off season of inactivity, and this was sort of coming off the heels of, at the end of the season, they really came out and said that they were going to be cutting back on payroll, looking to give opportunities to some young guys. They mentioned, hey, we need to go talk to some of our veterans and see if this is really something that they want to be a part of, which to me kind of just heavily implied that they wanted those guys to leave. Like, oh, you don't want to be here, right? And then, it ended up being kind of funny as a fan who doesn't want to see them cut payroll. It was kind of funny to see them unable to do so, because all these guys that they gave no trade clauses to are still here. They went out and they talked to Wilson Contreras and Sonny Gray, and neither one of them were interested in leaving. And Nolan Arenado was open to a trade, but did not get traded. He had a very short list of teams that he was willing to go to, and he's still here. So I think they probably overplayed their hand a little bit. Maybe they shouldn't have had that big press conference before talking to those guys. Maybe you have those conversations and see what the team might look like and then go from there. That's not the way they went about it. And, they're wanting to cut payroll, in a way that's pretty frustrating, because, they've talked about a little bit of uncertainty in terms of the TV money, with the Bally situation. And they've even talked about how attendance in St. Louis has kind of dwindled a little bit, and using that as an excuse to cut payroll, which is really just a slap in the face, because the attendance dwindles because the product on the field is not what it needs to be and not up to expectation. I mean, I've been to St. Louis many times. When it's humming, you got 45,000 there on a Tuesday night. That's a baseball town through and through. And so to try to throw that at the fans, like, oh, you're not buying enough hot dogs. It's like, oh, okay. It's BS, and it's frustrating for sure. But what's also frustrating is just that they're kind of riding the fence, right? I mean, they're sort of in between rebuilding and trying to contend, and they just sort of end up directionless. Given that those veterans are still here and clearly they're not going to add, it begs the question, why is Ryan Helsley and Eric Fetty still here? Those are two guys that are going to be in walk years, with a ton of value. I mean, Eric Fetty had the best year of his career, 180 innings, 3.3 ERA. Helsley was awesome last year. Like, you're very likely not going to extend those guys, as we've seen. They're not very likely to re-sign those guys. So are you going to let them walk for nothing? Are you trying to thread the needle and maybe try to surprise yourselves and, see where we are, in June and go from there? But it just kind of feels like they don't have a firm direction. And that's definitely frustrating. I know for me in 2025, I'm kind of going to be measuring success by the development of the young players, and whether or not we can get answers moving forward. So, I'm not super concerned about wins and losses, because quite frankly, I don't think the Cardinals are super concerned about it. But, finding out who's going to be part of the core moving forward. Is it going to be a quick turnaround? Is it going to be a long rebuild? And what I'm excited for is guys like Nolan Gorman, Jordan Walker, who have kind of been yanked around a little bit. They've been sent up and down. With Walker, especially, they tried to change his swing, and it was a bad situation. So they're going to give those guys 500-600 ABs this year and say, go play, go figure it out, and we're going to see what we got. And for that, I'm excited. It's kind of maybe a little bit of a relief that the expectation is kind of lower coming into this year, and you can kind of just focus on the development as opposed to the results. But that's kind of where I'm at with them right now. And I know that the team's in good spirits. The players are excited. They're hungry to prove something. I think best case scenario, they can, be kind of sneaky. but I just think it's going to be tough without those reinforcements. And it seems like the organization's, kind of clamped down on the purse strings a little bit and said, nope, we're not going to be adding. So I have them in fourth place, same record I have with the Pirates, 77 wins. But I mean, I'll give myself something. They can have the tiebreaker over the Pirates.
I mean, the Cardinals for years were never active or barely active in free agency. You'd never see them going after the big jewel. And then last year, they go get Sonny Gray. And Ryan Helsley is a guy, after he screwed me in fantasy 2 years ago, I hate the guy. Like, he is dead to me completely. We'll never pick him up in fantasy ever again. Wish nothing but poor luck against the Braves, because I don't want to give too much bad karma by saying I want him to do awful, because that will bite me in the ass. It always does. But I don't like the guy. Sorry. Never. After 2 years ago, I can't. This is it's tough because it's almost like they're trying to do what it's kind of like, I guess, what the Minnesota Vikings said they were going to do for the last 2 years, a quote unquote competitive rebuild where they're not going to strip down for parts and tank, but they're still going to try and be, and when teams do that, sometimes they get lucky and do decently. Sometimes it doesn't work and it just turns into a full rebuild anyway. It's really hard to tell with St. Louis exactly where it's going to fall, because I could absolutely see some of these young guys surprising and having great years, and them once again exceeding expectations despite barely scoring runs. I could see the wheels fall off the apple cart and this team absolutely crash and burn to fourth place, because they're not going to be worse than the Pirates. I'm sorry. That's not going to happen. So Jason said 77. He completely agreed with you, Zach. I think I'm going to be slightly more optimistic, but I think they are going to turn back. I'm going to go 79 wins this year, fourth place. What do you think, Joe?
Well, a few questions for Zach. Three, I guess. Do you think you said the pressure's a little lighter on some of the guys? Do you think that some of the pressure that was on Jordan Walker led to the issues he had?
I don't think it helped, but I don't think it was the main reason. Not to get super into the weeds here, but there was an article in The Athletic that came out toward the end of the year that kind of exposed the Cardinals for falling behind in player development, and called them out for a lot of things. One of the big things was in terms of their field staff comparative to more competitive organizations. The Cardinals were behind on having designated roles for things like a catching coordinator or infield, outfield coaches, stuff like that. So players coming up through the system have kind of lacked that specialized instruction. But with Walker specifically, I really hate what they did with him, because he came out of high school as a third baseman. At 20 years old, he made his major league debut. They stuck him out in right field, which is a position he had never played. And, that's in an environment like I'm describing, where you don't have roving instructors at every level of the minors. You don't have an outfield coordinator. Trying to learn a new position at age 20, figuring out big league pitching. And then, oh, by the way, we're going to try to change your swing because you're hitting too many ground balls. You need to hit the ball in the air. And then, cutting his confidence by sending him down to AAA when he's not playing poorly. They sent him down again last year to AAA. I just think they've handled him really poorly. And this is kind of the first year that I feel like he's going to feel like he's got a place on the team. He knows they're going to give him the runway. They fired the hitting coach. He's been really excited talking about the new guy, Brant Brown, kind of getting back to the swing that made him who he was. And so I'm really excited about that. I think they horribly mismanaged him, and he's 22 years old, so I don't think it's too late. But I really do blame the organization, and their player development model for a lot of what went wrong with him. And thankfully, with Hein Bloom taking over, I think that's an area of strength for him that he's going to be able to highlight and improve.
Okay. If for some reason Arenado gets traded, do you think they move him to third?
I think they've talked about moving Gorman to third.
Okay.
Gorman, what came up as a third baseman. I think at this point they're committed to having Walker in the outfield, at least to try it. On paper, it should work. He's a phenomenal athlete. But again, it might not translate. But I think Gorman would be the first choice to move over to third. Then you can have Donovan slot in at second.
Okay. All right. I'm going to be, I think we talked a little bit before we came on that there's just something about the organization outside of the last number of years where they can get on a run and be sneaky good. I'm going to go 87.
Wow.
I'm going to be optimistic on the Cardinals. I think Wilson Contreras playing the entire year, more than likely, by moving to first is going to make a difference for him and for the team. I think Walker, with some of the stuff you mentioned, Zach, with a little bit less pressure, I think is finally going to be able to just go play ball. And I think that'll be and Mason Wynn is just exciting. So I'm going to be bullish, and I'm going to go 87.
Alex.
I despise the Cardinals because of the 2000s and 2010s, because they were a model MLB franchise, the way that they ran their team. But they are cursed, and they are cursed by one player. They're cursed by not re-signing Albert Pujols. They have a curse, and it's going to take them a while to break it. It's not going to take them over 100 years, don't get me wrong, but it is going to take them a while to break it. They've lost their way. They didn't find their way this offseason as an organization. And I wish I could say that they were starting to find their way, and I don't think they are. That said, I do think there are some exciting pieces to this team. I love Mason Wynn. I think he's fantastic. I actually really love the outfield. I know there are those issues with how they've handled Jordan Walker. I love Lars Nootbaar, partially because I love his name. I mean, what kind of a name is that? It's an incredible name. Wilson Contreras at first base, he's going to hit over 48 home runs this year. Calling it. Yep, 48. Calling it. It's going to be an incredible year for him. I do have them as fourth in the division, but tied with the Pirates, so they're going to lose the tiebreak at 84 wins. So I think they're going to be an above 500 team. I think the bullpen's going to carry them. I think they're going to have a few players that are going to carry them on offense, but fourth place, 84 wins.
Fourth place in 84. Didn't you have, hold on a second. Oh, all right. 84. Okay. Oh, you had the Reds fifth at 80. Okay. I'm like, Alex, your math's not mathing, but the math does math if you I'm sorry. 48 home runs for Wilson kind of threw me for a loop. All right. This is why we put him on here, for the whacked out shit that comes out of this kid's mouth. And losing the tiebreaker to the Pirates. Yeah, I don't know about that, but we'll see. And I like it though. I really do. It would definitely be interesting to see, and I love that the Cardinals fans higher on the Cubs, and the Cubs fans are higher on the Cardinals. I love it. Being the only somewhat neutral observer in the room. All right, now for the last team that all four of us can in a united front absolutely despise, the Milwaukee Brewers. Last year, they decided to actually play good ball despite losing their manager and went to a 93-69 record, winning the Central and then predictably getting knocked out in the first round because they're the Brewers. Who was shocked by that? Ron was the closest at 84, as we were all very, very down on them. I was the farthest off at 69 and last, and boy, was that was not the case last year. So looking at the depth chart, former Brave catcher William Contreras. God, that trade looks even worse now that we're going to lose Murph for 4 to 6 weeks with a cracked rib. Boy, we did not win that one. Rhys Hoskins still at first base. He did pick up his player option in the offseason. Bryce Trang at second, Caleb Durbin at third, Joey Ortiz at short, outfield Jackson Chorizo, Garrett Mitchell, Sal Frelick, and Christian Yelich at DH full time. The starting rotation, Freddie Peralta, Brandon Woodruff is back after missing all of last year, recovering from Tommy John. Newly picked up Nestor Cortez from the Yankees, who Alex and I actually got to see in September, and he was throwing smoke in that game. He was really good. And then the Yankees did use him for 20-some days, and Freddie Freeman made him pay at the World Series. But I'm going to put that on Aaron Boone. I'm not going to put that on Nestor Cortez. That was idiotic to bring him into that situation. They also have Aaron Savali, Tobias Myers. In the bullpen, Trevor McGill, after they traded away Devin Williams again to the Yankees, because I guess so Houston is the AAA club of the Cubs. I guess the Brewers are now the AAA club of the Yankees, if what I'm reading in the offseason is somewhat accurate here. So now the new closer is Trevor McGill with Joel Payampas, Nick Mears, Jared Koenig, Abner Uribe, Grant Wolfram. Predictably, the Brewers were mostly quiet in free agency, as they often are. They don't usually bring guys in. They like to grow their talent and keep it as long as they can. Caleb Durbin also came over in the trade for Nestor Cortez, which was what they received for Devin Williams. Really no big losses. I guess you could say Gary Sanchez was the big loss, but he was so bad. That's definitely addition by subtraction in my book. Jason's hedging his bets a little bit. He has them at 82 wins. He has them in second place. This is tough because you don't know how Brandon Woodruff's going to perform coming off Tommy John. I'm a little bullish on Brandon Woodruff coming back. I think he might not be the shutout, throw smoke, semi-ace behind Corbin Burns that he used to be, but I think he's going to be a solid 2-3 level pitcher. I like Freddie Peralta. I don't necessarily know that I like him as an ace. I like him more as a 2, but I think Freddie Peralta is going to get the job done pretty well for the Brewers this year. Williams is going to be insane. He's going to be probably the best catcher in the National League, or one of the best catchers in the National League this year. God, I hate that trade even more. Rhys Hoskins, he's another year off that ACL. Rhys is probably going to rake this year. I don't hate the infield. I really want to see the Brewers regress, and I think they will. I don't think they're going to break 90 wins this year, but I don't hate what they've done. And I don't hate the roster. They've got some pop in there. They've got solid pitching. The bullpen's not as strong as it was without Devin Williams. That's definitely true. I think I'm going to go 86 wins in second. I don't think they pick up a wild card. Joe, what do you think?
Look, you have domination over this division until one of these teams actually goes out and does what they're supposed to frickin' do. I thought that was going to happen last year when the Cubs took counsel from them. That clearly didn't make a difference. So you're the cream of the crop of this division until someone knocks you off. And I'm going to say 92. There's not going to be much drop off for them, and they're still going to win this division.
92 and first. All right. Alex?
While I sit here on my older brother's podcast, it's the only time I will ever say that the older brother is going to be better than the younger brother. I'm high on William Contreras. Wilson's going to have the better year, but I am high on William Contreras. I'm high on a lot of this team, and I hate to say it because the Brewers are my least favorite team in the division. I despise the Brewers. I don't like the Cardinals, but I can respect them. I don't respect the Brewers at this point in time. The Brewers had almost 50% of their wins last year come from behind. They had 39 wins that were come from behind wins last year. That's a wild statistic. They're not going to be able to maintain that. So they're going to have to be able to get out in front and have more wins this year. So there's going to be some regression from that standpoint, I think, this year. So I have them as second in the division. I'm going to put them at 87 wins. It's a solid team. Like Joe said, I thought they were going to have regression last year, and they didn't. So what can I say? Clearly something they're doing is right, and I don't think they've done anything that wrong this offseason that it's going to be a huge drop-off. And I do think they're still going to make the playoffs, and it's going to be 2 playoff teams from this division.
So you're saying 87 in wild card?
Yep.
Okay. All right, Zach, what do you think?
Did we mention that they lost Willie Adames?
No, I did not mention that. Yeah, Willie Adames that's a huge loss there. It's the other reason why I'm hedging my bets more down towards the 86 and not in the 90s again.
Yeah, I think losing Adames and Devin Williams as well. I don't know. I've got them closer to where Jason has them. I've got them at 83 wins, which is still good enough for second for me. But yeah, it's hard to doubt them. I feel like I've been fading the Brewers for years, so I'm just going to embrace it now, I guess, and maybe they will fall off if I pick them to do kind of okay.
I'm certainly not going to complain when it finally happens that they do completely fall apart, because there have been too many years that I've needed the Brewers to win to improve my playoff standing, and they haven't, or I need them to lose to improve my playoff standing, and they haven't. Can't stand them. I absolutely can't stand them, and you can tell Alex is my brother because he and I very much stand united on the hate Milwaukee front. Doesn't also help that I'm a Minnesota Vikings fan and think the entire state of Milwaukee should be just set on fire and thrown in the trash heap. But anyway, I digress. Alex, last year you made your wild oddball pick of the NL, and you picked that the Miami Marlins would make the NLCS. This very, very predictably fell apart very early in the season and did not come to pass. So what's the 2025 wild oddball pick of the NL?
Okay, so I have 2. One of them's not that wild. As much as I hate to say this, I think the Mets are going to win the World Series this year.
Man.
I do. I think the Mets are going to win the World Series this year. I think that they've shown multiple times that over the past 5 years or so that they can kind of put it together late in the year. Obviously, they went out and spent $750 million this offseason on a single player. And I think that was honestly money well spent, which is not something you can say to the Mets in much of their recent history in the offseason when they spend a lot of money. So I do think the Mets are going to win the World Series. I think, though, MVP is going to come from the NL Central. I don't know who. Not going to name who. MVP is going to come from the NL Central.
Wilson Contreras.
48 home runs or more, 100%.
Wouldn't shock me. I honestly, you just never know. The NL Central is such an oddball division. It really, like, it almost has like an Oddfellows feel to it, where you know what it's going to be, but at the same time you don't know what it's going to be, because you don't know who's going to take the step that year and jump ahead of everybody else. Because it's been a while since we've had a true juggernaut out of the NL Central. Probably, I'd say 2016 would be the last time we had a true juggernaut out of it. It's been quite a while.
I don't know. What, 2019 Cardinals, didn't they win over 100 games? There was like something around there that they had a solid, didn't they? Was it earlier than that? They won a lot of games one of those years, but maybe they weren't a juggernaut.
I can't remember which. There might have been another year, but I mean, that is the last World Series title out of the division. Is 2016. So, yeah, the divisions do to have somebody make a surprise run. So, Alex, I enjoy these wild oddball picks so much. I'm gonna put you on the spot, and I want you to make one for the AL this year too.
Yankees are going to miss the playoffs.
Ooh, oh man! I won't tell Mom you said that.
Look, I think the Yankees are a solid team who has a manager with an ego problem. And I think that ego is going to come to pass this year.
To be honest, I wouldn't be shocked. And their pitching is going to be otherworldly. The problem is, outside of Aaron Judge and a couple other pieces, they're going to have some guys that can mash, but defense is once again going to be a problem. They did not address the defensive problems that plagued that team all last year, and most notably in one particular inning of a World Series game last year, which could be replayed to the Benny Hill theme and be quite accurate. All right. I like it, man. So that's the preview for the AL/NL Central is complete. We'll be back in about 2 weeks. We will be doing the AL and NL East. Jason will be back at that point. I know he's not going to miss that one because he's going to want every opportunity to revel in the fact that he finally gets to go last because the Phillies won the division last year for the first time since we started the podcast. So I know he's excited for that. So he'll be back for that. I know Jim will likely be available. We'll get him on, and we'll see if some of our other Mets fans want to hop on, and we can have a nice little bloodbath discussion like we often have when we discuss the East divisions. So, guys, audio recordings available on Anchor, Spotify, Breaker, Google Podcasts, anywhere you find podcasts. We're live on YouTube and Facebook. Merchandise is at redbubble.com/people/DDAB-podcast. I did see somebody bought two stickers off there today. Thank you, whoever that was. Greatly appreciate the support. Guys, we're presented by Dark Arrow Podcast, LLC. We're sponsored by Whiskey and Blade Barbershop over in Manheim. I'm sorry, that's from last year. No, it's Baron Barbershop over in Manheim now. So Johnny moved over to Baron. He's not at Whiskey anymore. So, guys, may your dogs always cost $1. May your beer always be cold. Zach, Alex, we'll try and bring you guys back somewhere at least quarter way, halfway through, because I do like when we get to the big milestone points in the season. I do like having these big roundtable discussions as we all either celebrate or gripe and moan about how the season's been going so far. All right, guys, we will see you in a couple weeks.